let's get to know conditional sentences. So what are conditionals or conditional sentences? Conditionals or conditional sentences are actually sentences with two clause, an if clause and a main clause, which are closely related. So the if clause and the main clause are closely related. Okay, so let's look at a few examples to understand. Here we have an example. The example says, if I have enough money, I will go to Japan. Okay, so the sentence is divided into two clauses with a comma. The first clause says, if I have enough money. Since this clause has the if word in it, that means this is the conditional clause. And the next clause, which does not have the if word in it, that is the main clause. Alright. And here we have another example. It says, I will go to Japan if I have enough money. Again, the sentence is divided into two clauses with a comma. Here we can see that the main clause is given first and the conditional clause is given after the main clause. So we can understand from this that the main clause and the conditional clause can come first or second. That's no problem. Okay. Alright, so let's look at the types of conditional sentences. Conditional sentences are divided into different types. Basically, there are four types of conditional sentences: zero conditional sentences, first conditional sentences, second conditional sentences, third conditional sentences. Okay, so we have the four conditional sentences, but there is also another conditional known as the mixed conditionals. Muhammadul Islam Dhruva will be talking about those. Okay, let's get to know the zero conditional sentences. The zero conditional is used to describe situations which have automatic or habitual results. We use zero conditionals to talk about things that are always true. We also use zero conditionals when we are 100% sure of the result. Alright, let's look at some examples. If you heat water, it boils. If you heat ice, it melts. When the sun goes down, it gets dark. So in the first example, the example says, if you heat water, it boils. We all know that if we heat water, it will boil. So here we are 100% sure of the result. Also, this sentence is always true. So this is a zero conditional sentence we can understand from them. Okay. So another thing we can notice here is that both the main clause and the if clause are in the present simple. Okay, that was okay. So we use the first conditionals when we talk about something or some situation which is possible in future. We use the first conditionals when we talk about real and possible situations. Okay. The structure of the first conditional sentences is usually if plus present simple and will plus infinitive. Okay, the verb in the if clause is in the present tense and the verb in the main clause is in the future simple tense. It doesn't matter which comes first. There is usually a comma between the two clauses. Okay, so let's look at some examples of first conditional sentences. Okay, here we have an example. I'll go shopping on the way home if I have time. There's another example. If it's a nice day tomorrow, we'll go to the beach. If you try very hard, you will see the difference. Actually, if you try very hard, you will actually see the difference. John will be late if you don't lend him your car. Okay, so this type of sentence implies that the action is very probable. That is the reason the first conditional is also known as probable conditionals. So let's look at example. Let's look at the first example. I'll go shopping on the way home if I have time. So I will go shopping if I have time. So this is very probable. If nothing comes up and I have time, I will go shopping. So this is probable. This isn't imaginary or improbable. Okay. We can also note that the meaning here is in present or future. in the examples, but the main verb in the if clause is in a present, not future tense. Okay, let's see. For the first example, I'll go shopping on the way home if I have time. So I'll go shopping on the way home, that's the main clause, and if I have time is that's our if clause. Let's see, if I have time, that is in present tense. And I'll go shopping on the way home, this one is in present present future tense. Okay, future present tense or whatever, I don't know. Let's look at the second example. If it's a nice day tomorrow, we'll go to the beach. We'll go to the beach, that is in future tense, that is the main clause. And let's look at the if clause. If it's a nice day tomorrow. Okay, if it's a nice day tomorrow, I'm talking about tomorrow, but I'm talking about it now, so it is actually in present tense. The other examples are the same. That was everything. The first conditionals were used to explain a situation that will happen or have the probability of happening. But here in the second conditionals, we use second conditional sentences when the things will not happen or the things are unreal. Okay, let's have a look. The second conditionals. The second conditional is used to talk about unreal or impossible things. We use the second conditional to give advice, or we use it to talk about a future situation that is unlikely to happen or will never happen. The structure of second conditional is if plus past simple and would plus infinitive. Okay, let's look at the use of second conditionals. Okay, first use, when the situation is contrary to known facts. Let's understand it through an example. If I lived in New York, I wouldn't have to commute there each day. So here the known fact is, if I lived in New York, I know that if I lived in New York, I wouldn't have to commute there each day. But I really don't live in New York. I'm just supposing that if I lived in New York, I would do this and that, because the facts are known to me and I'm supposing it. This is not real because I do not live in New York. Okay, so that is when the supposition is contrary to known facts. Let's look at another example. If I were you, I would plant some trees in your garden. But I'm not you. I'm just supposing the situation to known facts, that if I were you, I would do this and that. But actually, in truth, I am not you. I'm just supposing it. Okay, let's look at another use. That is when we don't expect the action in the if clause to happen. Okay, let's understand it through example again. If I saw a zombie, I would run as fast as I could. So if I saw a zombie, I would run as fast as I could. But I don't expect to see a zombie because I know that zombies are not real. So that is not a supposition. I cannot suppose something that is not real because I know that is not real. So I will not expect that. So this is when we don't expect the action in the if clause to happen. Example. Here we have another example. If I bought a car like this, everyone would admire me. But I don't intend to buy the car. So I'm not expecting that. Alright. Okay. Now look at the difference between the first conditionals and second conditionals. So there is no difference between the first conditionals and the second conditionals as far as time is concerned. The first conditional, like the second conditional, refers to the present or future. But the difference between the past tense difference between the first conditional and the second conditional is the past tense in the if clause is not a true past but a subjective, which indicates improbability or unreality in the second conditional. But in the first conditional, your sentence indicated probability. That's why we learned that the first conditional is also known as the probable conditional. Here the second conditional is also known as improbable conditional because the probability of happening something is 0. But in the first conditional, the probability of happening was not 0. It could happen or could not happen. It had a strong probability of happening. But in the second conditionals, the probability of happening is 0 or less than 0. Okay, that is the difference between the first and the second conditionals. And I'll be ending